With President Ellis having now shown his true intentions, he is on the run, and is being protected by the Black Tusk at every turn. The United States is now currently leaderless, and while DC crumbles around them, it would almost seem that the division's main objective, to ensure the continuity of government, has failed. But how did it get to this point? Lawrence Waller was the President of the United States when the green poison outbreak began in New York City. Waller was an academically gifted student, graduating from Harvard University. He went on to become a criminal defense lawyer before deciding to get into politics. When the green poison epidemic struck, President Waller was clearly concerned and demanded that it be kept up to date with how bad it was getting in New York. He immediately assumed that this was an attack by another country like Russia or China. However, he was advised that this was unlikely, due to them having problems of their own. It was confirmed by later reports that the green poison had spread to over 100 countries. Waller declared martial law and merged the police, fire department and National Guard to form the Joint Task Force. Their job? To set up and control a quarantine around central Manhattan. It quickly became obvious that this was a much bigger task than originally thought. After seeking advice with his Vice President Thomas Mendez and the Speaker of the House, Andrew Ellis, President Waller used Directive 51 and activated the Strategic Homeland Division. The first wave agents were dispatched into New York City with the orders to assist the JTF in maintaining the quarantine in Manhattan and protecting the thousands of innocents inside. However, it didn't take long before the President was briefed by a JTF general. He said that the small team of division agents sent in had proved ineffective at controlling the quarantine zone. And on top of this, some of the first wave had turned against the government and gone rogue.
It's clear that a small-scale activation didn't do the trick. Hell, it went backwards on us. We've got reports of agents going rogue.
With all due respect, Mr. President, you can't toe-dip in a situation like this. Half measures aren't worth squat.
Half measures my ass. Those agents have full executive authority and the most advanced tech in our arsenal.
None of that matters if you took them into the deep end without a lifeline. Jesus, Larry, you've read history books.
Fine. Call Louis Chang and let him know the second wave is a go.
Waller ordered the general to contact Louis Chang to dispatch the second wave into New York. Shortly after this, President Waller was found dead. He died of a heart attack. Following President Waller's death, Vice President Thomas Mendez was quickly sworn in under the 25th Amendment and became the second president of the dollar flu outbreak. Mendez was born in Seattle. His family owned a business that he hoped to inherit from a young age. Mendez was a statistical genius and ran a very profitable real estate enterprise before he transitioned into politics. As the vice president, economics were his area of expertise and the main component in his decision-making. When President Waller was considering the use of Directive 51, Mendez questioned him. He believed that this would upset the American people and politically damage Waller's reputation. However, he was quickly overruled by Waller and Andrew Ellis. They agreed that the situation was bad enough to warrant it.
Are you sure you want to do this? The optics are going to be terrible. With all due respect, Mr. Mendez, screw the optics. Manhattan's in a crisis state, and this is the one club I've got left in my bag. Hell if I'm not going to take a swing.
Agreed. Hopefully, this will only be needed for a short time, and we can deal with the fallout once the crisis is past.
And if it's not over quickly, what do we do then? Then you better learn some useful skills, because if this thing drags on, the damn optics will be the least of our worries.
Soon after Waller's death, Mendez was sworn in as President of the United States. The cities of New York and Washington, D.C. descended into chaos. This was due to his inability to manage the crisis. Mendez was left with no choice but to order the remaining officials of the federal government to evacuate the capital. Shortly after this, he called an emergency meeting with the United Nations. Unaware of how far the devastation had spread, he was briefed by an ambassador that the green poison had spread to every continent in the world, and that the casualties would be in the tens of millions. President Mendez is believed to have been one of the last officials that would have been evacuated from DC. However, before this happened, his body is discovered, appearing as though he's committed suicide. Given how things were going, there is no proper investigation carried out. Rumours started circulating, some saying that he committed suicide due to the stress of being president during the outbreak. Others say it was because he was infected with the virus. Regardless, the Speaker of the House, Andrew Ellis, was quickly sworn in as president at the undisclosed location that the government was evacuated to. Later on, it is found through an echo that President Mendez is betrayed by two members of the Secret Service. They were promised safe passage out of the city by the Black Tusk if they murdered Mendez and made it look like a suicide. They were in turn killed in an underground parking lot to cover up the assassination. President Andrew Ellis comes from a long line of wealthy public servants. He was educated in a private school and spent 4 years at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, where he proved himself to be a natural leader. Ellis aspires to build a brand new America and is willing to do whatever it takes to achieve his goals. He was considering a bid for the presidency during the last election, but decided that the timing wasn't quite right. In the Grand Washington Hotel, a poster on the wall reveals that Ellis is part of a pro-private military contractor group and was due to attend a conference with Lieutenant Colonel Charles Bliss of the Last Man Battalion as a guest speaker. When the outbreak first occurred, Ellis supported President Waller's decision in activating Directive 51, and around the same time he was contacted by an anonymous individual about a potential opportunity.
Andrew Ellis?
Who is this?
A messenger. I believe Senator Richards was already in contact with you.
He certainly piqued my curiosity. I'd be interested to hear what exactly your friends have in mind and how I would fit into the equation.
Excellent. It would be best to discuss the specifics in person, of course.
That can be arranged.
Ellis was evacuated along with the surviving members of the federal government. While hidden away with the rest of the federal government, Ellis was approached by the Black Tusk. He was briefed on the part that he was to play, and was sent back to Washington DC to keep the division in line, and to make sure that they didn't get in the way of the Black Tusk's mission.
Hey, we need you in D.C.
DC? Why?
Look, our biggest obstacle in this whole venture is the Strategic Homeland Division. Now, technically, they answer to you. Realistically, they're a bunch of self-governing cowboys who answer to no one.
You think they're going to be a problem?
I think it's a risk, which is why I want you in their faces 24/7, reminding them who they work for, and watching out for telltale signs of misguided idealism.
Misguided idealism?
If they fall in line, they'll be a tremendous asset. If they get in our way, they're going to be a hell of a pain in the ass, in which case we need advanced warning so that we can take preventative measures.
When do I leave?
As soon as the plane's done fueling, you'll be kicking up your heels in the Oval Office by sundown.
On his way back to the capital, aboard Air Force One, they were shot down by a surface-to-air missile. It was assumed that President Ellis was killed. An informant within the Hyenas provided information that they had stolen something from the Air Force One crash site. The division raided the bank headquarters to recover what the Hyenas stole, and while there they managed to intercept a Hyena transmission, revealing that President Ellis is still alive and was being held hostage. The division quickly found him and had him extracted via helicopter. Once back in the White House, President Ellis called for a meeting with Manny, KELSO, and the player agent. He stated his reasons for returning, that there were samples of a broad-spectrum antiviral medication that was sent to DC as a continuity of government measure. Ellis continued on to talk about how the medication can cure all viral infections, like dengue fever, the common cold, and even the dollar flu. But in order to access the location of where it was being held, he required the briefcase that he was carrying on board Air Force One when it crashed. The division believed that this was likely with the True Sons in the Capitol building. Ellis ordered them to get it back by any means necessary. After the division re-established the SHD satellite network, President Ellis gave a speech at the White House, saying that they would kick all enemy factions out of DC. Soon after this, the division and the JTF launched assaults at the District Union Arena, Roosevelt Island, and Capitol Building. After assaulting the final enemy stronghold, the Capitol Building, and defeating the True Sons, they found and brought back the briefcase to the White House. However, this was the moment that the full-scale invasion was launched into the city. The Black Tusk had finally revealed themselves and their true force. and it was at this time that President Ellis disappeared, along with the briefcase. After discovering the location of the broad-spectrum antivirals at the secret laboratory under the White House South Lawn, the division observed the antivirals had already been taken. An echo at the scene reveals that President Ellis had been working with the Black Tusk all along, and he'd given them the antivirals. Ellis was immediately declared a traitor, and a manhunt was started to bring him to justice. After pushing the Black Tusk back through a series of battles across the city, the division launched an attack on their base at Tidal Basin as they were trying to extract the antivirals. But the division managed to stop them in time and claim the medication. It wasn't until they defeated the Black Tusk at the Washington National Airport that the division learned of President Ellis's location, Camp White Oak. This is a presidential retreat and was under heavy guard by the Black Tusk forces. The JTF and the division mounted an attack on the compound, but they were too late. President Ellis managed to evacuate in an Air Force helicopter. Ellis's whereabouts are once again unknown. Given the Black Tusk history of quickly disposing of assets once they've completed their tasks, it's obvious that Ellis is still of some value to them. We don't know what their plan for Ellis is at this stage, but given his position and the fact that they're continuing to keep him safe, it's likely to be something to do with the US public and the easing of the transition into the new dynasty that Black Tusk's employer has in mind. He will be the figurehead, or the puppet of this unknown group that plans to reshape the future of the United States of America. However, this may not be what Ellis has in mind.
Jesus, Andrew. Are you sure about this?
You said it yourself. Somebody has to step up.
What do you know about these people? Can you trust them?
I'm just a pawn as far as they're concerned.
Isn't that kind of a shitty position to put yourself in?
The thing is, pawns are dangerous, precisely because people underestimate them.
You think you can turn this to your advantage?
I'm confident I can make myself indispensable and get some things done that have needed doing for a good long time.
I don't know. This is a dangerous game to play.
Is there any other kind these days?
Find a way to keep those helicopters grounded.
Thanks for watching, guys. I had to record this in the garden shed. The newborn wasn't keen on cooperating. It's cold out here and I'm pretty sure I ate a couple of bugs, but hopefully this came out okay. I'll be continuing the story as more information comes available, but what do you think is going to happen next? What do you think the Black Tusk have planned? At the same time, if you have any other topics in the Division universe that you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, insert social media spiel here, and yep, cheers!
Immediate medical assistance needed.